Dee, there's people going to watch this and listen to this who don't know your background,
Okay.
and I know that I didn't know all this about you when I first met you. What was it, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
6 years ago or something? Well, to let everyone know, Dee lives in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. He's a retired airborne ranger of 20 years and is the National Federation Director for Archery Shooters Association.
Mm-hmm.
He is a level 5 NTS archery coach. He wrote and published the level 3 NTS course when it was called I just forgot what it's called. Oh yeah, the community course.
The old community coach course, yeah.
Yep. He's a international coach consultant with Costa Rica, New Zealand. I do have to read this. And Dubai. You've been a staff member or coach on 22 international trips since 2004. It's probably more by now since you told me about this.
25 now.
Oh, 24 now. 25 now. Yeah. And in 2013, Dee was elected to the USA Archery Board as the coach director. Is that what it's called?
Coach director.
Ah, wonderful. Well, hey, how you doing?
Actually, doing pretty good. I just finished up with a couple of students, and they're getting ready for the National Senior Games. We're working on shooting 900 round, 60, 50, 40 yards. So that's interesting. So thought I'd take a little break and we could chat for a while.
Oh, fantastic. Totally cool. You were just over at the Olympic Training Center last week?
Yeah, we were there for the Olympic trials, the second stage of the Olympic trials. They made the cut from the top 16 to the top 8.
So you have some of your people that you've worked with over the years competing for that slot,
those few slots, yeah.
Those few slots.
Yeah, I've been working very closely with Colin Klimacek, and I've been Colin's coach since shortly after he came on the Junior Dream Team, and then I started working with a lady, Allison Eaton. She actually shot in the Olympic trials in 1988, and then took some time off to get her family going and get a career. She's a school teacher, and so now that she's a little more settled and the kids are out of the house, and she tried to make a run at it again, and she did. She made the cut to the top 16, but she didn't quite make the top 8. She was number 10, and so that was
so close.
It was close, but I mean, there were a few things. I think that she would have had a better chance, but she was recovering from the flu. I mean, there's no excuses in archery, but she was recovering from the flu. She was a little weak, had a hard time breathing, and a little bit of a cough. So, it was a hard defeat for her personally because she put a lot of effort into it. But she was on the World Championship field archery team, and when we went to Croatia 2 years ago, and so she's going to try out for the World Field Team again this year, going to Dublin. So I think she's in a really good place mentally. Her archery game is really coming along, and as there are a lot of people, like especially Colin. Colin's in 4th place now, worked his way up from 9th in the trials, made the cut. He made the cut in 7th position, and then worked his way up 3 more spots to 4th. So he's in a good spot. So I think this is going to be a very exciting year, very exciting year.
That must be pretty intense, being out there competing. Is this really the best of the best that we know of?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's really good archers out there that aren't competing for the Olympics.
At that level, nobody's a slouch. I mean, seriously, everybody's good, and every arrow is a good arrow. You can't just say, well, I'll just tag along here and see if my opponent makes a bad shot, because they're not going. Every shot is a good shot, And so it was an emotionally trying week. I mean, there was a lot on the line for a lot of people. People had been working towards this for the last 4 years or even longer, And so it was hard. Some people went home that, really thought they were going to make it, and that other people thought were going to make it. And, some other people stayed around and are very happy to do so. So it was at this level, I mean, especially as a coach, there's a lot of emotion and a lot of, just mental mental effort. That's the only way you can say it. It's mental effort. And Colin and I were talking, and we were talking about the mental side of the program, about mental side of making the archery shots and having to do it 72 times in a row. And then in match play, where you have 5 sets of 3, and almost every match went to 5. And there were so many shoot-offs. And he said, this is a lot of work. This is really mentally tiring to do that. And it really is. And for the coach too, because you got sometimes you just got to sit here and just go, oh man, okay, he's don't say anything, just walk away. And other times, you think, oh, okay, now I need to do something, So it's a hard at that level. It's extremely difficult because you have to do the right thing. It's like backing a trailer. If you're going to go back a trailer, you always have to make the right first move, because if you don't, you're going to jackknife that thing and you'll be half an hour trying to put it in the spot. And it's the same way with coaching, is you always have to make the right first move. And so, but yeah, it was fun. It was a good week.
What particular part of that event was stressful for you, and how did you deal with that?
I think the hardest part for me is sometimes you just have to watch, and you just have to just stand there and keep your mouth shut and watch. And I mean, literally, you have to watch and don't be so quick. Too many people, I think, and especially on the coaching side, we're too quick. We all are, myself included, too quick to jump up and say, okay, I know what's wrong. I know what to do to help you be better. I know what you need to do. And you can't do that, because if you do, you're usually acting out of emotion or out of instinct, and you're not taking the time to analyze the situation. If you would take the time to analyze the situation, a lot of times you see that, well, maybe nothing's wrong. Maybe it's just that, stuff happens. I mean, it's like you shoot an arrow and it just doesn't go in the middle. I mean, maybe that happened. And so you never know. I mean, maybe there was a stray gust of wind and pushed it, or maybe the wind quit blowing halfway down the range, So I think that is probably the most mentally stressful part for me, is to stop and take that step back and say, okay, do I do something? Do I say something? Do I make a suggestion? Maybe I just go get him a bottle of water, or Powerade, or maybe if I just disappear for a couple of minutes, things will get better, So I think that's really hard. It's harder. I mean, it's easy. It's kind of like parenting in some respects. Sometimes you have to let your kids burn themselves just because then they'll know that stove's hot. But then you have to make sure they don't burn themselves too bad.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot like that. It's at this level too, when there's so much at stake. There's years of people's lives that they've given up. Their life. They've given up so much time for this. 1 or 2 or 3 events that make such a difference. And some people are just going to say, hey, it was, they have a great story to tell to their grandkids, and other people are going to have a better story to tell, so I think that's what was hard for me.
Well, I think that sometimes when you lose and you don't make it, it's the comeback afterwards, when you come back home, and you continue on and, still strive to get really good, rather than you can also beat yourself up. And there's a whole mental side of how to deal with the loss, and the loss at something at that level, which is not really, it's a loss in one way, but to be at that level, to compete with the Olympic trial is pretty impressive.
It really is. And I think that we've got a bunch of young guys right now, and young gals. I mean, these archers, I mean, I'm not going to call them kids, because they're young adults. Even the teenagers, they've had to grow up so much and mature to such a great degree that, to be able to do this, and yeah, the scores are phenomenal. You're looking at people that are out here shooting, 360s, not 360s, but 335s and 340s. And I mean, that's huge scores, when you take that on a 72 arrow round, and people are shooting, 680s. I mean, now you can't shoot a 675. Don't even come play. And that's phenomenal. A few years ago, if it was mean, you shoot 630s at 70 meters, and you're the man, or the woman. But nowadays, if you can't drop a 660, consistently, even on the women's side, then you're probably not going to be there at the end of the day.
And it's the distance of a football field, basically.
Yeah, it's 77 yards. It's 3/4
shooting
distance.
The size of pretty much a small apple.
Yeah, the X ring is 8 rings an apple, 10 rings of grapefruit. Yeah, I mean the 9 rings of cantaloupe. I mean it's you gotta. If you need something as big as a watermelon, you're just out of luck. So yeah, it's a tremendous amount of stress, and you see it. You see it in the whole everything. I mean, there's all that hanging in the air, and the consequences are severe. They're just brutal. If you don't make it, then you get sent home. And yeah, there's that story. Yeah, I made the cut to the top 16 and didn't quite make the top 8. I'll be back. Some of them will, and some of them won't. Some people will take on different lives and go a different direction. I really hope that, especially these younger kids, the guys like Colin and Zach, Anna Missione and Lauren Clayman and even like right now Ariel Givellaro and Lenola Pritchard. I mean, they're very young, but they're in the top. They're in the top 4, and it's got to be such a stressful. I mean, they've given up, years and years of their lives to live a Spartan lifestyle at the Olympic Training Center and work every day. And that's going to be hard. If you make the team, then it's great. It paid off. If not, well, it's like an investment that maybe didn't pan out.
Yeah.
You got to. Hopefully, they've spent those 4 or 5 years of their lives, working on a way that if they don't make the team, then, they can make it as an adult. They have an education, get a good job, and start over again. Start over on their archery. You can't stay at that level for 4 years. You've got to take a break.
Yeah.
And then pick it back up.
Well, there's a lot of soft skills that you gain from getting to that level, and can really utilize like that confidence and determination and self-discipline in other areas of your life outside of archery.
Oh yeah, there are, and I mean that's the discussions I have with my students. It's not just what you're learning about archery or learning in archery. It's also, what are you going to get out of this? How do you take this home, to your everyday life? The patience that you learn, just shooting match play, having to shoot against somebody and best them, not knowing. You don't know what they're going to come up with. What are they going to pull out of that quiver? Is it going to be a 10 this time or 9? And all you can do is just do your best. You can game it. You can analyze it. You can look at people's scores. You can see what their rhythms are. Maybe they always come out and they shoot a great end. They shoot a 29 or a 30 on the first end. Then they get slack on the second end. They shoot a 27 or 26. And then they come back with a mediocre, like a pretty good score, 28, 29. And then their next end, if you haven't won it by then the next end is going to be a 30 and the fifth end's always, so you can analyze people. It's just like watching racers or anybody else. Or watching a horse, in a racetrack. You can analyze people's game and you can pretty much know what they're going to do and they'll follow. I mean, statistically, it's there. You can look and you can find the scores online. You can see the weather conditions. And so, World Archery is great because now any world ranking event, you can look and you can see, and if they're using ENSEO, it's even better because now archers and all those other programs, you see the match scores right there and you can tell. You can look at opponent scores and you can see, they shot good end, bad end, good end, bad end, and then when you look at their 1 arrow shoot off scores, it's like, well, this guy, always shoots a 9 or a 10 and 50% of the time shoots an X. So what you're going up again. There's no surprises, but sometimes you do get surprised. And so that patience and that the fortitude, just being able to stand there and control your nerves and control your breathing and facing those fears and being able to face down those fears and anxieties, that I think that makes people a lot better in life, especially these young kids that they become international competitors. They've campaigned for years on like Junior Dream Team and even Compound now has Compound Dream Team, but they've been competing and youth world championships and international tournaments. From 14, 13, 15, 16 years old. And when they get in college, those kids are bulletproof. They're studying, that's nothing,
Yeah.
The pressures of having to make a good grade is a big deal, I had more pressure than that, when I was standing in the, in the shoot-offs at the Youth World Championship or the Pan Am Championships or whatever. So I think it really does make them a lot stronger if they're coached right, if it's done right,
Yeah.
It's got to be done right, Lucy, and it's like any other sport, soccer, football, baseball. If done right, athletics can really help to prepare a young person for adulthood and the stresses and challenges of being an adult.
Well, also, the cool thing is archery is an event, a sport in which adults can come into and later in life learn these soft skills that all of a sudden they go, oh, what I thought was hard before outside of my life is really easy because after, standing on the range in the sun with the pressure of competing.
Yeah, or on the coaching side, I mean, I got into archery. I really didn't get into archery till I was about in my mid 40s. A little bit earlier than that, maybe in my early 40s, and I got into archery. And I was a competitor, and I competed at pretty high levels. I've competed internationally, and then I got into coaching to try to pay for my archery habit. but I found that coaching is very rewarding. But you develop a lot of skills. I think I've become a much more patient person, and I've got a more positive outlook. And I'm not as quick to judge now that I've been coaching it. It's helped me. I mean, I used to be pretty quick, on the temper side, and not so much anymore. And I think it's because I've been able to, I don't know, just kind of temper a lot of that with some of the understandings that I've gotten through archery. Turn off some of these stupid programs at Windows 10. Decide they have to just alert you to everything that goes on here.
I told you, Windows 10.
Well, I'm not going to talk bad about it, but I'm not going to talk good about it either. Okay, they're good.
I can have like a class that's a community class that's a little on the excited side, I could say. And I'll have parents say to me afterwards, wow, Lucy, you're so patient. I'm like, well, yeah, I am patient, but it's more of, okay, where are they coming from? What are they really asking? The students, where are they, basically you can kind of look at their behavior and understand what's going on. Well, actually that person's just really kind of excited. That person actually I think needs to go to use the restroom.
Right. Yeah.
That person's a little stressed out because they're competing with their brother. And so you see all these little dynamics. So you move people around a little bit, things calm down, and you talk to somebody. And I mean, that's just kind of a very vague example.
Yeah. But you're right, and I totally agree. It's there's sometimes, I mean, like especially when we're group coaching with the dream team, or if you're running a class, and even with adults and instructor classes. The same thing. You get people that are really excited, and they kind of, it's infectious with the group. And sometimes you have to split two people apart or whatever. But I catch the same thing, especially in coaching, is that, a parent of a child, and the parents are they're really quick to say, well, my kid can do this, or my kid can't do that, or they have a really hard time with this, or they, struggle with that.
Yeah.
I just look at everybody as kind of being the same. And I had a young lady who, trying to string her bow here. I said, string your bow. And she said, well, my dad does that. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll take care of that. And I said, well, but no, I think that, what if he's not there?
How old is she?
She was about 14 then.
Okay.
I said, well, if he's not there, what are you going to do? So, well, I'll get somebody else. Somebody will help me. I know they won't. You're going to string your bow. We went through, I mean, both her parents sat right there and didn't say anything, but, she tried to string her bow and she couldn't get it done. And, She was doing a little crying, and we hugged it out, and then I strung her bow for her, and she's like, "Oh, thank you." And I said, "Well, now that you saw how it's done, let me take it." And so I unstrung it and gave it back to her, and that was about half of that lesson that day was stringing her bow. And and when we got through, she was very proud that she was able to string her own bow. She didn't need anybody's help anymore. But it was a situation that was difficult, and I was really afraid that one of her parents might step in. But it wasn't anything mean. It was just, okay, we're going to get this bow strung. Mm-hmm. It was a situation where the young lady lacked a lot of self-confidence because she had never been pushed outside of her comfort zone by her parents. Anything that she showed ineptitude with, they did it for her. And then a couple of weeks later, she bought new arrows, and we were cutting arrows, and she wanted to cut her own arrows. And so I told her all of the pitfalls of cutting arrows and how to hold them. And the first thing she did was she ground off about that much of an ACE. I wish she'd picked a little bit less expensive arrow to grind down. So she didn't do it just once, but she did do another one too. And so then we had to go through the process of cutting the arrows short, and then cutting another piece off of the end of another arrow to match up so that we could make a little bushing and get all the tips the same length. But then she learned another valuable lesson, though, is that there's very little you can do in life that's not fixable. Yeah. I mean, even if you are grinding $30 arrows into carbon dust, you can glue something, you can fix it. And so it's and I think that's a lot of what I've learned in coaching is that there's very little that's not fixable. Even if you screw up, you have a terrible loss, that's fixable. You can go back and you can get over that if you do it right mentally. And I think that's the point that we need to make, especially to the listeners, is that you have to mentally prepare yourself for any eventuality, any outcome. I never trained to lose. I never trained for second place, but if you do lose, if you do get second or third, or maybe don't even make the podium, what the heck? You might be so far down that people have to scroll 2 or 3 pages to find your name. I've been there. Yeah. I've been there myself. My wife, after one tournament, she says, "Man, you're really way down at the bottom. I don't think I've ever seen you that, number 101 out of 102. Come on, D." But I'm serious. It happened. I said, "Yeah, the only reason I was number 101 is because the number 102 gave up and left." So, but you can fix it, if you're.
And then that's sticking to it too. I mean, you're not doing well.
That's right.
And it's not like throwing everything down and having a temper tantrum and walking away. It's like, all right, I'm going to keep going. Yeah. What kept you going?
What kept me going? My wife wasn't going to leave on the first day, so I had to stick around. I paid for the whole tournament. I was going to get my money's worth.
She's a good influence.
Yeah, but no, it was, the thing is, it's the mental preparation for anybody, regardless of your level. It's the mental preparation that everything is fixable if you just go about it the right way. You might never win first place in an archery tournament, but you can pick goals that you can satisfy, that you can achieve. And then maybe that is satisfactory for a while. And then you pick a little bit higher goal and you achieve that. And, throughout your career, if you're mentally tough and, you don't get discouraged, if you just keep on keeping on, then, I think you'll find out that you achieve a lot more than you fail.
Yeah.
But it's all about the mental preparedness to do that.
It's interesting because basically we've just been talking about the mental aspect at, the highest levels of shooting. And that's not generally talked about at the beginner level.
No, it's not, unfortunately. Too many people coach far too much archery form and far too little mental form. And the mental form is, I think, probably more important than the physical form.
I'm trying to think. I mean, does the new level 1 book instructor book talk about the mental aspect?
I'm not sure. I haven't had time to sit down and read all 176 pages of that thing. Or explore the entire, archery coach online app. But I think that maybe there's a little bit, there may be some. I really think, level one, the whole thing with level one though is that, that whole program is kind of geared towards more of the camp side and getting people into archery. And they made a big reference book. I mean, it's a great book, but the whole level one course itself is kind of just a real fast paced, get, these people certified. The pointy end goes towards the target.
But something, it's the camp programs where people get excited and stay in archery. My coach, Marsha Wyman, she started in camp when she was 6 years old and made quite an impact in New England with archery. 4 or 5 businesses sort of swung out from under her. Hundreds, not hundreds, but several thousands of people were instructors, got certified under her as an instructor in programs. And at 6 or 7 years old, there was a camp program. So our camp programs are really important, but it's also it's tough because when they come to me to do the level one class, they're usually exhausted. I don't teach in the most sterile, beautiful place like an archery range where you have, you're inside or away from the elements. We're outside. It could be 100 degrees. It could be 70 degrees. It could be windy. It could be drizzly. I don't really do the rain thing teaching instructor class. I tried that once. It was really miserable. I mean, yeah.
I know.
and I was using the camp targets, and we've bent so many of my aluminum arrows because they got stuck in the target, and you'd have to take the target, put it on the ground, step on it, try and pull the arrow out. Yeah,
not fun.
But it was interesting because day 2 of that group, the weather was just a little bit better, and I had 16 instructor students, but they were so happy on the second day, and it wasn't the best weather. It was we all got through it in the horrible weather, and then it just got easier. And but still, I don't care for teaching in the rain.
No, and that's hard. It really is, and it's just miserable. It's like having to compete in cold, miserable, rainy weather. It's not good for anybody. The best people still may win, but and they talk about the camp. The camp programs are great programs, and a lot of people got their start, at camp, and they may not have gone and picked a bow back up soon, but maybe they got energized, and then something else gets them into it. But I think that sometimes that, and I'm not disrespecting the camps because there's a lot of archery shot at camp, and it's one of the most popular sports for camps. Unfortunately, they don't spend a lot of time at it. You may get an hour twice a week or something, but I think there's too much emphasis placed on, okay, let's hit the middle of that target, and let's have a competition, and let's do this and let's do that. And, it's all based on outcome. There's so much outcome based because there has to be somebody, oh, you were the winner on the archery range, and you hit more 10s than anybody else. And so you got to give away a trophy or a little plaque or something to remember camp by. And I think, if you did it more as an introduction to something that could become a long-term sport and place a little more emphasis on archery form and a little more emphasis on the mental side of it. I don't know how much time there is available for that. Probably not enough, but at least maybe it would get people thinking about, instead of trying to hit the 10, why don't you try to make a great shot, and then you'll hit the 10 more often. And those kind of words a lot of times means more in the long run than you're going to win if you hit more 10s. Because sometimes you don't have to hit more 10s. I mean, if you look at it, you can hit more 10s and have a lower score because you hit more 5s. The person that shoots more 8s and 9s, if you shoot 50% 8s and 50% 9s, you're going to outscore the person that shot, 50% 10s and 50% 6s, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You're averaging an 8.5, and they're only averaging 8.25. So I mean, you gotta think, is hitting more 10s important, or is maybe having a little bit tighter group, being a little bit more perfect, in the form spot or in the mental aspect is way more important. I mean, I don't care if you shoot a 54 with 6 9s, that's fine. Or you can shoot a 54 with 5 10s and a 4. I'd rather have the 6 9s myself.
What about just taking the target face off and putting up creative target faces?
You can do that too, and they have a lot of those. I mean, the what do they call that one, the oddball or the walleye, where they move the stuff around. I think those are great, because it takes you out of that just rote. I mean, you have to actually look and aim, and a lot of anything to do to break it up,
When I teach the level 1 classes, I try to incorporate in them skill sets that are games. So they're having fun, but they're learning something, like shooting at a rope, string alignment, putting up gigantic playing cards. They're the size of paper, and even adults love that. They're like, "Wow, look at that!" My regular programs, and I tried something different this past summer. Is I said to my instructor students, create a game, and we won't have time to play it, but think about it and come back on the next day. Right. When I teach the 2-day classes, and I put them in teams. Generally, if they're groups of teams from different camps, then I'll keep them in from their own camp. Well, actually, that I've done before, but what I did differently this time was I videotaped it. Yeah. So they'd come back and they would do a presentation of their game, and then we would critique it. And so from that, I then contacted all of the archery instructors that I certified, 100 and some odd number of them last year, and said, "What was your favorite game this past summer?" And I got an answer from a bunch of them. And it was really interesting talking with them, because some of them would say, we did scoring, but that was only like one camp. Most of them were like Save the Dragon, which was mostly the favorite one, which that is using one of the colored target faces, and you go on a journey going all the way in and then back out. But
that's pretty neat, yeah. Well, you're right, and I think a lot of the games that you play, you got to learn something. Anytime you have a game, it's all about learning something. And like we used to play games where you shoot a cross, so you shoot a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and you would go up, and if you were at 5, you get to the middle of the target. You shoot a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and then you shoot a 6 or a 5 instead of a 4. Now you got to start back over again. And so, it's a race to the middle, but then again, it's also an accuracy game, because you got to be accurate. You can't just screw up and shoot a 1, 2, 3, 5, and then get a 4, and then a 6, and then an 8, and then a 7. You have to do them in order, and so it takes a long time to play it. But you're learning aiming and steady hold and release and all those things that make you good at archery. So I'm a big fan of archery games and archery drills, but they have to teach something. I'm not a random kind of guy. I mean, like you got these games that ATA came up with a list of games, and I've done a lot of work for ATA, and curriculum development and stuff. And in the Explore Archery program, they had all these games. The one that they wouldn't take out was this, I'm not going to say any bad words, but this dang Hunger Games game. And it's this long, complicated game. It's got the reaping, and it's got the something else, and it's got the something else. And it's like, it takes you longer to read the dang instructions than it does to play the game. A game like that shouldn't even be played. But they had one that was blackjack. Well, it was turn your cards over backwards and pin them up, and then people shoot at the cards and see who's got the best hand. Well, that's dumb. That's just luck. Archery is not about luck. It's about skill. So if you're going to do that, turn the cards face up and you shoot at the cards to get a 21. Pick yourself out an ace and a 10, shoot at them, or 2 9s and a 2. I mean,
well, what do you think of the knockout games?
I think those are pretty good games, as long as nobody gets knocked out. I mean, the worst game you can ever play is when people have to sit down. So instead of that, what you do is you do stuff like round robins. You shoot round robin matches, and you can Google, round robin match play. I've got links for that, and any number of people. You type in the number of people you have, and it automatically matches them up. If it's an odd number, then you shoot a buy on the number one target. But it tells you every end who's shooting against who, and you rotate, do match play, and give them points. And maybe so you don't have to have a lot of shoot offs. It's 2 points for a win, or -1 for a loss, or maybe 1 point for a win, 0 for a tie, and -1 for a loss or something. And, so that way people, they see a score, they see performance, they see accuracy, they see competition, but they don't sit down, As soon as you sit somebody down, you've excluded them, you've disenfranchised them, and now they're going to be either getting into mischief or figuring, I paid a lot of money and now I'm not getting anything out of it, except I'm sitting down.
I actually had a archery instructor candidate argue with me over this concept. It was after we discussed the different games in the old manual, which some of them are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's what life is all about. I'm from New York City and you get knocked out. I mean, I'm not saying physically, but you get, disappointments, eliminated from the game and stuff. And I don't think I ever really persuaded her, but I made it really quite clear that, these parents are paying money for them to be in these programs, to be at camp, and some of these camps are quite expensive. And even if they're not expensive, they're there for the enjoyment of the program.
Right. And the whole thing about, learning a skill is that if you're at a competition, there's a difference between elimination matches in a competition and elimination matches in a camp environment or an instructional environment. You still have winners and you have losers. You have people that didn't win. If you want to call them winners and non-winners, I don't care what kind of politically correct language you use. But when you shoot in round robin matches or you're shooting scores, if you can even play like 36 arrow gold game, where you have gold is 1 and red is 0 and anything outside of that is a negative. Of course, you don't let them go in the hole because you want to see people, -50. You play a 36 arrow gold game, and at the end of 36 arrows, 6 ends of 6, you count up the score, and the person that has the highest was apparently the most accurate because you had the most in the gold and the least in the blue. So that person's the winner. You give them a little prize. Hey, get your finger off my Butterfinger, man. Here, congratulations, you won first place.
Give them sugar.
Yeah, I mean, what the heck? It's the end of the day. Give them a bunch of sugar, get them all jacked up on Mountain Dew, and send them home. But seriously, there's all kind of stuff, and this is all about developing not only the physical skills, but developing the mental skills in the competition. I'm competing. I need to get these points, and as you near the end of the competition, that hey, I have to buckle down, or I'm not going to get the Snickers bar, or I'm not going to get the soda water. Whatever. I don't get to be first in line for ice cream, man. If everybody's getting ice cream, good. Let the winners, first, second, third place get to be first in line.
Yeah.
Or first in line to the dining facility. Anything but make a consequence for not performing well. And sometimes you can even have who has the best form. Have people shoot, and regardless of where they hit, just shoot a blank bail or shoot an arrow into the dirt. I don't care, but have people, vote on who has the best form. Who's displaying the best archery form today. Okay, who's the best shooter? Not the best shot. Who's the best shooter? And this all helps to develop that mental game of performing at the line to achieve a score at the target.
So the form and teaching level 1 camps instructors, do you mind if I ask you what you think?
I don't mind. I'll tell you pretty much anything about archery. You know me, Lucy. I'd rarely mince my words, and you know. So, yeah. So no, I think that the level 1 camp curriculum is. I actually stopped teaching USA archery stuff a while back when they had the old 9 steps to the 10 ring or whatever it was, and I quit that because I didn't really care about the 10 ring. I cared about teaching, safety and enjoyment and shooting form, and then teaching instructors how to teach people so that they could be safe and enjoy the sport and actually learn something. And I worked a lot more on form. I worked on teaching NTS shooting form, alignment, getting to holding. I didn't get real involved in a lot of it, but I teach stance. Good firm stance, slightly open, just like NTS stance. I don't get as much into the hooking and gripping, but I still get into, the deep hook with these 2 fingers and, underneath the arrow and anchoring at the corner of the mouth. And, so it's easy. But, then we do really get into alignment where people come around and they're aligned. And we do the squeeze drills and just to show them, that if you're aligned and you actually have a little bit of back tension, then I can't collapse you. If you're
so you make it very simplistic when you're teaching a level 1.
Very, very simplistic. Stance, hook and grip proper. Get the bow up. Draw it back until you're at the corner of your mouth, but get that elbow around so that you've got some back tension. And then when you release, I call it paint your face. You want to release so that it's like putting on war paint. Coming along your face. And we've even done some groups at schools where we've gotten chalk dust or talcum powder and had them put their fingers in it. And then when they release you check them out. Who has,
what a good idea.
Who has war paint? Who doesn't?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. These kids are like, oh my gosh, Johnny didn't have any war paint. Get back up there and make another release. So, I do like to teach form, and I think that you should teach form. And,
1 second.
Go ahead.
It's supposed to be off.
Don't worry about
it. I'll just put it down there.
Yeah. But the thing is like just to finish up here is that I started actually using the NASP curriculum to teach my level 1 classes because it was better. And I kind of helped. I worked with Jenny Richardson on the NASP curriculum and Tim Strickland when he was making it. And so I was kind of part of that process.
But doesn't that sort of have you so your elbow's a little bit forward from looking at some of the pictures?
I use the curriculum, not the shot cycle. There's a difference.
Okay, I get it.
I use the class structure of NASP to teach, using stretch bands and using, string bows and getting the, the draw length and the proper, all that stuff right. And then we go into shooting the bow. So we might not, in an instructor class, we probably won't shoot a bow until around lunchtime because we're doing other stuff. We're doing, all of our round robin teach-in, and we're doing stuff with the stretch bands, and we're doing, the string bows to get the proper draw length and the elbow alignment. And then, usually about an hour before lunch. So we've been in class for about 3 hours, and then we do some shooting, but not until everybody knows proper form. Of course, in a camp, you don't have that much time. You don't have 3 hours to, get a bunch of kids around and teach them form, but you can still do it in 15 minutes. You can get up there. You can have pre-made string bows. Everybody gets one. They get, to do their draw length thing. You show them where their elbow is supposed to be, and they go through the motions. And that way, when they get the bow, they already know what to do. They're much more coordinated. I helped teach instructor courses, back when I first got my certification, my level 2, and I would team teach with people. And they were always, okay, you got to have them shooting within like 10 minutes. So we do the paperwork and they put bows in their hands. Say, okay, this is how you do it. And these people, here's grown adults. I mean, like they couldn't pull a bow back and they were all jacked out of alignment and stuff. It's like, well, why don't we teach them how to do it before we make them do it?
Yeah.
And so I work a lot on form, and I think that the new level 1 book is better, but I still don't think it goes far enough in instructor training. We're training instructors. We're not running a camp for young kids whose parents have paid them to shoot a bow.
Yeah.
We're teaching people how to teach, so we should teach them the correct form and then let them shoot a bow.
So you said to me the other day, when you were coaching me, that teaching this form should be quite simple.
Yeah.
And this isn't like to a camp program, but to someone who's going to actually really learn this form. Do you want to sort of talk about that and demonstrate how you teach it?
Yeah, I can do that. As a matter of fact, let me come around here and should have a little stretch band here somewhere. I carry 2 or 3 dozen of these things around with me. Yeah, I mean, I start off as very, very simple, very simplistic on teaching form, and I try not to complicate it too much. I, start off, we want to get, a proper hook, and that's, a deep hook with the index finger and the ring finger. And, stance, all that stuff is easy. You teach stance, just, feet comfortable width apart, your target side foot, just bring it back a couple inches so that, you're slightly offset to the target. And then as far as everything else, the hook is, you want to have a really deep hook with these 2 fingers, and then just kind of lay your ring finger up there. Kind of curl your thumb and pinky so it's like you're holding a ball. And then on your grip side is I like to put the grip of the bow right along where
your lifeline is.
The lifeline is.
Basically.
Yeah. And and then also is kind of like, curl your pinky finger into your palm, and that'll pull your other fingers with it. And that also lets you put your index finger on the riser and sort of pull back so that your hand is pushing into the bow with the bottom of your thumb into the pressure point. So when you pick the bow up, you're actually pushing down with your shoulder and pushing against the bow. It's like rolling a ball up the wall. You're hinging your shoulder up. So that way you're not lifting the shoulder. You're not lifting your shoulder. You're hinging your arm. And that puts that pressure into the pressure point. Because otherwise what happens if you put your pressure into your pivot point here, your elbow, your whole shoulder disengages. But if you have the pressure into your pressure point low and you have a high wrist or a low wrist, now I can't push my arm out more than about 1/4 inch because my lat muscles are tight, and it won't let me push my shoulder because it tightens my shoulder blade. But as soon as I pull my hand down like this, now I can push my shoulder. It's amazing. Just that little bit of pressure change causes such a change in the shot. And, the other thing is that you want to start from a lower position, is come up and kind of drop down into a lower position so that you align your shoulders, not pull the string back, but just so that you drop in, align your shoulders, and then you're actually drawing upward. You're drawing into your pressure point right here. So you're drawing into upward position, and that lets you get into your back so that you're coming around in an angular motion and not dropping in with a bunch of bicep. So it's an angular motion, and then you rotate up to your anchor and rotate down to transfer, and then just have a nice smooth follow through. So it's really simple, and to me it's something that takes maybe 5-10 minutes to show somebody and explain it to them so they can understand it, and then another few minutes to, if I had been with you where I could actually guide your hands to where they needed to be, it would have been much simpler. But I have this amazing power of explanation, so you understood it right off the bat.
Wait a minute, I met you in person like.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Don't say when, it'll be pinpointing our ages.
72 years ago?
Yeah, about that. But yeah, I mean, I think this whole thing, yeah, and I'm sorry, I just want to finish, is that this whole shot cycle should actually look and be easy. There shouldn't be all this struggle. I mean, I don't know why people struggle,
People need like a reference point. Like when you get to like here, how do you reference where your hand is from your chest and your chin and going under your jaw?
Well, I do it. It's kind of a feeling, number one, but I when you come up is when you're lowering everything down, you're actually dropping your shoulders. So you're letting.
Well, how far away is your arm?
Well,
sorry.
Yeah, I was going to get there. Okay. I drop my shoulders. I want my shoulders to feel low, And then I usually try to get about a thumb's width from my chin. And that gives me about 4 or 5 inches of draw. Because actually what happens is even though your elbow is moving around at an angle, your hand is moving straight to your loading position. So I'm not pushing my shoulder back. I'm actually drawing the bow by pulling my shoulder blade towards the middle of my back. And so that whole arm ends up moving. See, I'm about a thumb's width away, and this whole arm moves as a unit. You can see that this whole forearm swings around as a unit, and then rotate to anchor and transfer. So it's once you've done it a few million times, it's easy, but the initial learning can kind of be confusing because people want to hit their setup position and then drop in with their hand like this instead of rotating around with the elbow. They want to just collapse in with their draw hand. And once you collapse in with that draw hand and your elbow gets outside of the arrow line, you'll almost never be able to get it back. But if you start out and you get it around there in the first place, now it's easy. You gain range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the most difficult part. I'm sorry.
Well, most people are no linear, and it's so natural. It's just kind of raising, going this and coming back here. So how do you describe getting from your hand and raising it up to here?
Well, it's the linear part of a draw is people just come up and they point the bow at the target. This is, and I think that's misunderstood, is that the linear is from pointing the bow at the target, and then your elbow has to be outside the arrow line. You can never get that elbow around far enough when you're like this, when you're looking right straight down that arrow at the target. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to come up and you're actually looking between the riser. You're looking between the string and the riser when you get to setup. You're doing that all the way from the time you lift the bow. Like if you were the target, this is my stance. I'm gonna lift the bow and align and come to setup, and I'm looking. My riser is on the left side of the target for a right-handed archer, and my string now is on the right side of the target. But as I come around, see, it swings the bow into position. It swings that stabilizer around. So that's how you get the angular motion. Linear would be this, and then I would just pull straight back. So you can still see my elbow. I can't get that elbow around into alignment. But if I come up with that string just a little bit out, so I'm looking between the string and the riser, now I can swing everything around as a unit. And that's the big difference. That is the difference right there, is you have to have that little bit of offset so that you allow the bow to swing around just that 1 inch towards the target as you draw. Because your stabilizer is going to be pointing over there somewhere. It's like if my finger is my stabilizer, now when I load, it's coming to the target.
Is that about like 10 or 15 degrees off center?
Yeah, 10 or 15 degrees. Just some people are a little closer. If you look at like maybe some of the more elite archers, they come up there a little bit closer. You know, they're quite as far off center, so that they come less. Some of them like to be a little bit more open with it, so it comes around more. It has more of a swing. But, you know, somehow or another people got this idea that they were supposed to be coming way around like that. And that's not it. You come almost straight up. It's just a very small, maybe the width of your hand motion from here to a line at the top and come down. So it's not a very big motion. I told you, I'm in a meeting. Thank you. All right. Okay. Let me just turn the ringer down here. Yeah, so I mean, it's like I said, it should be easy, and if people teach it to be easy and tell their students, hey, look, this is really easy. This is how you do it. Then the students think it's easy. It's like, wow, this should be easy, you know. But if they tell them, look, this is really hard and it takes people years to figure this out, it's like anything else, you know. It's like a guppy, you know. It'll grow to the size of its tank. So if you tell somebody it's going to take them 3 years to figure this out, well, guess what? 3 years from now, they're still going to be figuring it out.
Can you describe what you're doing with your bow hand as you're raising the bow?
Yeah, all I'm doing with the bow hand is just keeping it dead.
So you're straight, but at what point, we're increasing our brace height from.
Yeah. Well, all you're doing really is you start out, and I can turn this up a little bit, is you're going to start out, this is brace height, so you're going to put maybe an inch or two of draw on the bow so that this hand is pushing down and out. So you're actually setting your draw side shoulder blade so that when you hinge up, your arm comes straight up and then straight back down. See, I didn't pull the string. My string is in the same exact spot from right here. All I did was come straight up, align, and then come straight back down. So if I want to start further back, if I want to end up further back, I start further back. I start here.
Yeah. So
I'm going to come straight up, align, and straight down. And so the bow arm is actually pushing the bow and opening the bow for you. All you're doing is just hanging on with this hand. And then you load, anchor, and transfer. So the bow arm is doing all the work initially. When you first come up, this hand just hangs on. Right hand, hold on to the string. Don't let go. So I come up, align, and down. Now that the bow arm has done the first half, now all the rest of the work is done with the draw arm. And the bow arm just is nothing more than just a prop. It just sticks out there. And so that's really kind of the key to all this, is that you got to do the work with one side, then you do the work with the other side.
Okay. What mistakes are you seeing coaches doing that could be potentially harmful to athletes and students?
I think that I'm not going to say any names, but I think that some of the mistakes that I've seen coaches do, and I have people come to me and they say, "Coach, man, I really like shooting, but I'm getting some shoulder pain, or I'm getting some back pain, or I'm getting this," and I've got a really good luck with stopping that. And I can proudly say that I've never had an archery student who had an archery related injury, unless they shot themselves in the foot or hit themselves with the bowstring. But I mean, they haven't ever developed shoulder problems or shoulder issues from archery. And I think one of the things I see people doing is they're having people, if you set this shoulder blade just a little bit, there's a little muscle called the serratus anterior right here. And that muscle runs from your rib cage to your shoulder blade. And its job is to keep that shoulder blade, the scapula, from winging out. If you'll tighten this muscle right here just a little bit before you raise your arm, then there's no way that your shoulder is going to roll. Even if you push like heck with that part of your thumb, you're not going to be able to roll that shoulder. Now, if you come up off of that pressure point onto your pivot point now, then you can push and you'll roll your shoulder. So I think that one of the mistakes that some coaches are doing is they're not emphasizing that you've got to set that scapula and tense up your tricep and put some tension in your wrist here to hold that high wrist, so that when you come up to draw, see, my shoulder doesn't roll at all. All it does is just hinge up, and that's it right there. If I don't do that, if I don't put that tension in that scapula, when I come up and press, now my shoulder is going to roll forward. Okay. There's a difference between archers coming up and rotating their arm, which is in the drills and skill book. Teaching not rotating my shoulder. This is rolling the shoulder. So I think a combination of not setting that scapula and wanting them to turn their arm, but not teaching them to rotate the head of the humerus inside the rotator cuff. This is rotating your arm bone inside the rotator cuff. This is rolling the shoulder. Rolling the shoulder gives you some terrible injuries like bicepial tendonitis and subacromial bursitis and, oh my gosh, I mean, all kind of itises. And those itis, when you get an itis, that becomes a chronic condition, and the only way to cure it is either surgery or stop shooting. Yeah, don't get an itis.
Itis prevention program. See Falks and everybody he's worked with.
Yeah, but it is. It's all about setting that bow shoulder. Same thing on the draw side. If you come up and you're drawing using your back, Now everything's moving around as a unit. So you have very little tension on your bicep. So you're not going to end up getting bicep injuries, and you're going to have, I don't think you would ever get a rotator cuff injury because you're not pulling with your shoulder. You're loading with your back. You're pulling in with your back. So you're using big muscles to make those small movements. And so that's it. I think that's besides maybe not, properly teaching a mental game, on the physical side, it's coaches who maybe don't have the physiological experience or the biomechanical experience that's correct, are, having archers draw and load and anchor, they're shooting their bows in ways that could really hurt them. On the compound side, it's really bad. I cringe when I see some of these kids, and especially women that are overbowed, and they've got to really horse that bow around, and
and they lift up straight at the sky, and then
they're stopping that, because World Archery won't let them, so now they're drawing like low, but the thing is it's just so much effort. Compounds they're hard bows because you're at full draw weight immediately. You don't get to work your way up like you do with a recurve.
Yeah, that's very true.
So the difference between shooting, like for a youngster, shooting 25 pounds and shooting 30 pounds, that 5 pounds is pretty rough. Because you've got to start out and you got to break that bow open. And so I think that, sometimes parents and coaches feeling the need for speed to get faster arrows that get to the target quicker and don't drift as much, they tend to have youngsters a little bit overbowed with draw weight. So
I actually had a dad come up to me after class, which was wonderful, because I have had parents with kid with bow right there saying, "Can I use it?" But he waited till after class, and he showed me the 2 compound bows he has for his girls, and I had them pull it back, and the youngest girl's like, I was like, okay, I said, so see how she's kind of kicking her hip out?
Yeah.
That bow is a little bit too heavy for her, and the dad was wonderful because he totally listened to me,
right?
And we talked about injury prevention, and it just really helped him out. And I really appreciate parents that come and say, well, here's equipment, should we use it? And if not, what can we do instead?
Right.
So I am going to send you a picture of the bow to get your perspective of it at another time. But it looks actually like a brand new good bow. Though the mass weight of compound bows tend to be heavier.
Yeah,
so it's like you're going to get tired from holding it.
Yeah, but once you've worked out the geometry after your full draw, it doesn't feel that heavy because of just the geometry of the way things are working. Recurves, but we're weighting our recurves down too. Most people are putting more weight on the bow for stability. And so that the wind has a harder time getting the bow, to push the bow. But by the same token, if that wind's strong enough to push the bow, then the momentum of the bow will continue to drive it. And also compounds, they're starting to weight them a little bit differently. They're putting more back weight than front weight. But yeah, the mass weight of compounds, 4.5, 5 pounds is not unheard of for a target compound bow. And recurves, if you got a bow that weighs more than 2 pounds before you put your stabilizers on it, that's a heavy bow. It's like, oh my God, you're using a boat anchor for a riser. So.
Something. I didn't realize how heavy 10 pounds is. I was like.
Yeah, hold up a window weight. Just hold 10 pounds up for 30 seconds.
Well, I walked to the store, which is about a half a mile away, and I didn't think I bought a lot. And I came home, I was like, dang, that was a workout.
Yeah.
And then I weighed myself, and then I weighed myself without the backpack, and I'm like, that was only 10 pounds. I'm like such a weakling.
Yeah, if you're not used to it, I know when I'm traveling, my backpack weighs a lot because I got my laptop and all of my junk and binos and stuff in there. A pair of binoculars weighs 3 pounds, so weight adds up pretty fast.
When I was assisting you with that level 3 class in your near where you live, not near where I live, and I decided to walk that one day.
I'm sorry, I hate to laugh, but that was kind of funny.
I wasn't thinking. I didn't think you were that far away.
About 3 miles.
So, yeah. I had my backpack had my computer in it, which is never light. And yeah, it was a good workout.
It was not a cool day either.
No. Yeah. It was cool when I left the hotel. But yeah, strange things that we do.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think, as coaches, and I spend a lot of time because I train coaches. And
do you talk to them about food?
I tell archers that they need to eat what they eat at home. If you're on an international trip where you can't pronounce the food you're eating, it's a little bit more difficult. But I also recommend that they bring some stuff from home for snacks during the day. If you chow down on beef jerky, that's what you want to do, and for goodness sakes, do it. And that's great. If you eat whatever, peanut butter crackers, then do it. I mean, I had a kid, we were down in Guatemala, and this boy was a Nutella freak. I mean, he ate Nutella just by the spoonfuls. I mean, it would take.
What's Nutella?
Nutella is a chocolate hazelnut spread.
Oh, that! Oh my gosh, that is so good.
Yeah, and that is good.
I'm gonna have to go buy one now. Thanks.
I'm sure. But I think it's probably got as much sugar in it as it has.
That's probably why it's so good.
Yeah, but he would just sit there and get a jar of Nutella and just scoop the stuff out. But hey, he did good. He shot great. That's what it took. That's what he wanted. He wanted Nutella, and I mean, I'm a big peanut butter and graham cracker fan. I like to get, especially on those hot days, that peanut butter gets all soft. You just dip that graham cracker down there and just chow down.
Oh, hadn't thought of that.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, whatever snacks you eat at home should be the same snacks. And you have to, I mean, for example, I went to the Olympic Training Center for 9 days, ate like a pig. I had 3-egg omelet with, ham and cheese and mushrooms and.
Oh, they have the best food.
And hash browns every morning with ketchup and, 2 glasses of milk with every meal. For lunch you're getting, roasted pork loin and vegetables. And it was like, I ate like I was, dying of hunger for 9 days. I came home and I lost a half a pound. How does that happen? Well, it's because you've been standing on an archery range coaching, for 9 hours a day, every day. And it takes a lot of energy standing around. I mean, well, you're walking and stuff too. If you've got a Fitbit, I was getting about 15,000 steps a day, but that takes a lot of energy. And so, people don't realize, during the day how much energy they're burning off on an archery range. And especially if you're pulling that bow back, that's a lot of exercise. So you've got to eat, and you've got to drink, you've got to stay hydrated. So. Yeah, I discuss food. We talk about food options.
Because some people sort of react differently. Some people can drink a cup of coffee and shoot right after that, and other people just couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's me. I can drink coffee and shoot.
You can drink coffee and sleep too, probably.
Yeah, about. But no, I have a young lady I'm coaching that her morning breakfast is like bagel and a glass of orange juice. I'm sitting here telling you really should, eat something here. I'm good. I really don't like to eat in the morning. But then, she snacks during the day too, and then, has a substantial lunch and dinner. So, overall, it's just she's, kind of a more of a continental breakfast kind of person, I guess. Give me a bagel and some cream cheese and a glass of orange juice, and she's good to go. Some people are like that. But you need to discuss.
I used to be like that.
Yeah.
And then when I started eating more proteins and stuff for breakfast, I was like, I had energy.
And I think that's important. You've got to be able to discuss those food options and find out something that'll work. You can say all you want to say, but if it's not feasible or doable, then it's just not going to happen. I mean, if you go, like we went to Guatemala and, like chilaquiles for breakfast and, mashed up black beans and rice. And I mean, that's breakfast. I mean, yeah, you can go there and you can get a bowl of cereal and whatever, but if you're going to eat breakfast, then you ate Guatemalan food, which was, in that part of the world, it's a lot of it is, whatever was left over last night, we mix it together and mash it up. And then we tortilla and we eat it in the morning. And I love it. I live for that. It's great, but, some people can't. And we had people that went to Guatemala with us here on that trip that they were a little off put by the food that was served in the mornings, for breakfast. Just because it's a breakfast thing. People are really finicky about their breakfast.
Yeah.
I don't care. Fur, fins, or feathers. If it's not fighting with me, I'll eat it.
I don't like things out of a box.
No.
Like cornflakes. Cheerios.
Yeah. But hey, it's food. You got to keep up your energy. So that's a huge issue. It really is.
Hey, just a little earlier, you said you train a lot of coaches, and then you were about to say something, and then I asked you a different question. I was wondering if you remember what your thoughts were.
No, I was just talking about coach training, and that my job is training coaches, and so I take that very seriously. So I think a lot about coach training. I'm constantly thinking about coach training and where coaches go right and where coaches go wrong. And it's really funny. I tell this story is that everybody wants to watch the great coaches, I'm going to be just like that guy. I'm going to be just like Coach K. I'm going to be just like, so and so. I'm going to be a great coach. You know what? You're never going to be like those guys because you have no idea what their secrets are and what they do in that locker room and what they say to people and how they inspire. And anybody can be a technical expert. I mean, anybody.
I mean, like these great football or soccer coaches.
Yeah. I mean, you'll never, because they're them,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be one of those guys. I don't want to be a Vince Lombardi. I want to be a Coach D,
Mm-hmm.
and I want Coach D to be famous someday as have been a great coach, and unfortunately nobody ever really knows you're a great coach until you're dead, but so, wow, we really miss that guy. Too bad he's not around, but the thing is that, I watch the people who aren't good coaches, and I watch the mistakes that they made. When I was in high school, I worked on shrimp boats. And
really?
Yeah, I worked on shrimp boats, man. I loved it. I had a great time.
Where did you go to high school?
Down in South Texas at Palacios High School in Palacios, Texas.
Right. So right on the ocean?
Yeah, right on the Gulf.
The Gulf?
Yeah, we were on Tres Palacios Bay, and then, you had the Gulf of Mexico just not too far away. But yeah, and so what I would do is, and I was pretty young. I mean, I was running shrimp boats when I was, 16, 17 years old. And, pretty big boats. And so, but I would talk to these people that didn't catch any shrimp. And I would say, so where are you going in the morning? What are you going to do? Why do you, when it's windy, where do you like to go? If the moon's out and the water's calm, and if it's a full moon, the calm bay, where do you go shrimping? Where are you going to put overboard? And so I would listen to these people. And then sure enough, when the conditions were like that, then I would say, well, where is old Terry? Oh, he's over there at such and such a place. And so at the end of the day, he comes in and you go, well, that guy didn't catch any shrimp. So when the moon's out and the water's calm, then don't go over there because there's no shrimp over there. But then you had guys like Vernon, like there was some people that were legends around the Gulf Coast, like guy Vernon Bates, or Nello Seaman, they would sneak off because they knew these places. And so they did sneak off when you weren't looking, and you look around and go, where the hell are they? Because they had their little secret hidey hole where they went and caught shrimp because they knew that when it was this condition right here, that's where they're going to be. Well, that's like these great coaches. These great coaches, they got their little secrets that you're never going to learn, unless they write a book, and then they still might not, put the right stuff in there. And so what you do though is you do what you think is right, but then you try not to repeat the mistakes of the people that aren't very good. And I think that by eliminating the mistakes, then you start to narrow down the possible plausible solutions to different problems. And I think that, as coaches, we need to look at everybody. Don't discount someone just because maybe they had a bad year or a bad month or a bad decade. There's something that they have to offer, whether it's just, being a good example of what you should avoid.
Good example.
Yeah, or maybe they, had a...
That totally makes sense, yeah.
Or maybe they, had a good run for a while and they just, hit a little dry spell.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I know coaches that, and I'm really glad to see them kind of hitting their stride right now because they've been at the game for a long time. I'll tell anybody I'm lucky. I am really lucky. I saw some good archers who put faith in me and I put faith in them. And, we had a good run and it's been a good long run, many years, and of coaching archers to the top. And I thank God every day that my luck has been this good and that I've been able to find such great athletes. And maybe part of it's me and maybe part of it's just dumb luck, I think that there's some coaches right now that are really starting to kind of hit their stride and they've figured some things out and they've gotten some athletes that are good athletes. And there's a lot of synergy there. You have to create this synergy between the coach and the athlete. And it's a team. It's more of it's not just a team. It's a relationship. It's a personal relationship. And there's so much trust that you have to develop in this bond between the coach and the athlete. And you're going to fight. You're going to have to close the door sometime and say, look, let's have it out right here. Because if you don't clear the air every now and then this tension is going to build or some animosity is going to build or some distrust is going to build. And then pretty soon it's over. It's just like being married, or having any type of interpersonal relationship. This is not just business. It is business, but on the other side of it, there's a relationship that you have to build. And I think that there's some coaches that are finally figuring that out, that they can't just walk in and go, this is how you're going to shoot your arrows. Yeah. Okay. You can tell me that, but I can't. The way Dee shoots his arrows isn't the same way that Lucy shoots her arrows. What I need you to do is make Dee a better arrow shooter. It's the same way. I need to make Lucy a better arrow shooter. Look at the way you shoot, improve your form by making minor corrections along the way so that maybe a year or two from now, you look in the mirror and go, wow, that's me. I look that good shooting,
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I've just been really lucky. I've been able to identify some talent and I've had some talent that, has stuck with me over time and it's been really good. I've been lucky too that, I've gotten some archers that maybe they went as far as they could with another coach and they were already good archers when I got them. I was just able to strike that balance between, the whole, and I guess maybe just put a couple of pieces that were missing in place or do something. I don't know. Show them a different way to hold their pinky finger that made them shoot better. And they went from where they were and they took that next step. And so it just made me look good. I thank those coaches. I tell them every day, thank you, for sending me so-and-so. So I don't know. I think a lot about coach training and where our state of coaching is in the United States. Cause I don't know, Coach Lee's going to get tired one of these days and he's going to retire. And I really dread the day that he does because I think there's going to be a coaching civil war in the United States. And I would hate to have to look, for us to look abroad for another head coach. I don't think that we should. I think that we can pick out an American that's a good coach, and we should hire an American to be our next national head coach. I think that Coach Lee needed to be hired because there was too much infighting, and there's still too much infighting in the coaching ranks. I know better than you know. Well, maybe so. I've got a top archer. Mel Nichols has a top archer. Steve Cornell has a top archer. That's 3 of the top 4 right there. And so, are we totally responsible for our top archers? No. No one is totally personally responsible for any top archer in the United States right now. No one. Everybody's had some help along the lines. Mel worked with Brady. Brady went to the training center. Coach Lee worked with him. He's seen sports psychologists, he's seen sports medicine people, same with Colin. Tom Barker brought Colin Klimacek up to the point where he made the junior dream team, and then I worked with Colin, and got him up to where he's a resident athlete. And now Coach Lee's worked with him, and I continue to work with him. The same way with Zach. Steve Cornell started working with Zach when he was in Missouri. And then Zach got on the junior dream team and got on the resident athlete and position. And, so Coach Lee's worked with him, and Steve's worked with him, somebody else. So nobody, I don't think anybody can say today that, yeah, I personally coached one of the top archers all the way from the first shot to the last. And Mackenzie Brown, number 4 woman in the world. Her dad got me to coaching her when she was about 12 years old, maybe 13. No, about 12, I guess. I coached Mackenzie for 4 years until she turned 16, and she was a multiple national champion. And before that, Lorinda Cohen had coached Mackenzie, and some other people. And, I got her to a couple of national championships. She got on the junior dream team. She became a resident athlete. Then, she was traveling a lot with the national team. And so Mel Nichols started coaching her. And, now Mel's got Mackenzie. she's his student right now. But there's a lot of experience has flowed under that bridge. And so, when we talk about coaching now in the United States, there are some good coaches in the United States. And we've all helped each other, whether we wanted to or not. And I think that at the top, America's got coaches that can run this program, that can be national head coaches, that can keep the program going. And like I said, I think every day about coach training, about archer training, because it's my job. It's what I love doing. Mm-hmm. I get up in the morning and that's where I am. I check my schedule and I go, oh my goodness, that's great. I got some students today. If I don't, I just sit around all bored. And, I guess I go, fling a few arrows and play with the dogs or whatever.
Yeah, you can, back to when you were talking about learning from other people and other people's mistakes being coaches. And it made me think about the flight instructors that I've had, mm-hmm. and the different teachers and different people of influence that I've had in my life.
I don't think people, I've got to put in a plug here. I don't think people quite understand the accomplishments you've made in aviation. Mm. Yeah. You got all your multi-engine ratings and complex. No, don't you?
No, I don't have multi.
You got commercial though, right?
Yeah, I got commercial. I started flying when I was 16 years old. Yeah. I paid for it myself by becoming a lifeguard. And my mom chipped in a little bit later when I needed to do cross countries, which was, flying like 100, a little further.
A lot of gas.
not across the country, but more like a 5-hour block rather than a 1-hour block. And then I got accepted to Daniel Webster College in Nashua, New Hampshire, where I got my commercial pilot and flight instructor mm-hmm. and instrument. And that at that time when it was a flight program, it was considered one of the top programs in the United States for the airlines, because what they taught us was, they taught us technique, but the number one thing was how to think. Right. It was a huge, how to analyze, problem solve under pressure, because basically your life depended on it. Yeah. But I also flew the motor glider there, which is a glider with a motor on mm-hmm. it. You turn off the motor and did aerobatics.
Wow. That's pretty cool. But see, the thing is it's all problem solving and analyzing. It's the same as archery. Mm-hmm. You get something goes wrong. If the arrow doesn't hit where you thought it should, you can either cuss and kick dirt, or you can figure out what happened, what you need to do to make it better. So, but that's good. I'm glad to hear you say that. So I do want to hear about your flight instructor stuff.
Oh, my flight instructor stuff?
You were going to talk about, no, you said that was like some of your flight instructors. You're talking about coaching.
Oh, yeah. My flight instructors, I had several phenomenal flight instructors. I had a bad year at college where we had somebody die in a plane crash. Mm-hmm. And then I had a whole bunch of people, like 6 people that I knew died. So it affected me mentally. And what I remember at that time thinking, they really should get into the aspect of thinking how your emotions mentally affect what you're doing. So the type of flying we were doing at that time was really intense. You flew was I flying crew at that time? No, it was before that. Well, in college you fly crew. In this particular program, like it's one of the capstone courses where you have a crew partner and you fly like an airline. You have a mission and stuff. But before that, I was doing my instrument training, and that just is a real whole mental game with flying instruments under, not looking outside, and my flying really wasn't. I wasn't succeeding right at that point, so I decided to take a semester off. And at that time, I felt like there's people at the flight center that didn't want me to continue the program. Just attitudes or something, like the chief instructor. So when I came back, I got permission. I got like a leave of absence kind of thing from the program, so I could come back and start where I'd finished off. And what I said to them was like, yeah, when I come back, I only want like 5 flights to correct, to finish that program, and to be able to continue then on to the next program. So after a semester off, I would visualize my flying in the Mooney 20J, which is an airplane that's just complex, hard. It's slick, it's fast, and it doesn't like to slow down. So I came back, I flew in. Now, what did I do? I sat down with Pat Keeney, and Pat Keeney sat down with me. He took my folder, he put it on the table and said, I am not even going to look at it. Basically saying, we're starting right now, let's go flying. So I went flying with him and did 5 flights, had not flown in 4 months. I went and I did the check ride or the flight test with the school to pass my course. I passed it. And then I flew in 4 different airplanes flying different check rides to get checked out in their plane, did an FAA check ride, and did that all within like 2 weeks or something.
Wow.
So, yeah, I guess there's a lot of mental stuff, because sometimes you just need to take a break, step back, do something else, and then come back and be refreshed. But during that time period, I did do visualization of flying, and I think that helped.
Well, it does help, and I know visualization is a very powerful tool, and we have our archers do visualization, and as part of any mental program is to close your eyes, or even just daydream with your eyes open, but see yourself doing something. And not necessarily putting an arrow in the tin. It's really kind of funny is if you sit a bunch of people down and you say, okay, visualize yourself shooting a shot. You get a little bit of breeze from the right, so visualize yourself shooting a shot. Okay, now where did it hit? And you'd be surprised how many people won't say, I split the spider. That's how I got it. That was an 8 to the left, because of this and that and the other. No, if I'm going to see myself shooting a shot, I'm going to see myself shooting the perfect shot that also has the perfect landing, because I know, okay, if it's 5 mile an hour wind from the right, then I'm going to be holding in, just inside the 8 ring, and it's going to drift right into the 10. I mean, that's exactly what it's supposed to do, right? And so, and it's like you said, the visualization. I know when I was in the Army and I was in same kind of story as I went to Jumpmaster School. Jumpmaster School is one of the highest attrition rates of any school besides Ranger School. Actually, probably percentage-wise even higher. But a lot of stuff that you can just get failed instantly on. And you have the Jumpmaster Personnel Inspection where you actually shoot up people in parachute gear. Then you have like 1 minute per jumper for the people that just have on straight parachutes. And then you get 1.5 minutes per jumper on people that have combat equipment. So you have 2 different, sets of 3. And all these people would go and they would get this parachute gear because they'd let you have it, let you practice. And they would rig up these jumpers with deficiencies, major and minor deficiencies. And they would try to like catch each other on them. Well, I didn't do that. And me and a bunch of other people didn't do that. What we did was we sat down or laid down and closed our eyes and pictured a paratrooper that everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. And we went over it in our minds, all the steps of all the nomenclature and everything, and, chin strap properly routed, blah, blah, blah. And everything was perfect. And we did that for so long and so long. And then we got the gear and we rigged people up perfectly. And we did the Jumpmaster Perfect personnel inspections where it was perfect. We never saw a flaw in the gear. And so when we went to the test, because you walk in this door and you go into this room to the right. Well, if you fail, you keep going right. If you go back across the hall to the left, and if you fail, then you go back out to the right. But if you pass, then you keep going left, and you end up with this very small group of people that passed. And so when we came time for the Jumpmaster personnel inspection, I went in there, and you always follow your hands. You never take your eyes off of your hands, and your hands never get ahead of your eyes. I went around that guy, and the first thing was I came right down the chin strap, and there was a little small twist. You couldn't always see it. They hide it. It was right there by the snap. It's like just twisted. It's like, oh, man, chin strap not properly routed or whatever, twisted chin strap. Because it's a minor. It's something that would cause discomfort. But if you get 3 of them, you fail. One major causes injury, you fail. And, so, I mean, as your hands moved along those things, you'd seen it so many times in your mind, perfect. That as soon as it was imperfect, it was there. It's like, lift the dot, slide fastener not properly routed over the tab thong or something. It's just like, all that. And so visualization, but it was the power of visualization. So when I went to military free fall Jumpmaster school, it's the same thing. You had the same thing, combat equipment and Hollywood jump. We call them Hollywood when there's no equipment. And so that group of us that just visualized for so many hours. I mean, all night we just visualized, and then practiced on properly equipped people. We all made it. We all passed. So I'm a true believer in the power of visualization, whether it's flying an airplane and instruments and all that. You've got to do that, especially in archery. You've got to be able to do that. If you can see it, you can say it, and you can do it. I guarantee you.
I actually visualized checklists or something incorrectly, and it was a check ride at school, which is a flight test, and at this level, the last course, now I'm flying without a crew partner, and I go on a mission. It's like I'm taking my flight instructor to a place. I have a certain amount of time to get there, and then I had to get out of there quickly. Mm-hmm. But I had just practiced something incorrectly, and it wasn't anything really huge, but because I practiced it incorrectly in my mind, yeah. I did it incorrectly with him. I'm like, on the flight, I was like, wow, okay, this is important to visualize stuff correctly. Right. What got me on that flight was I actually ended up getting vertigo.
Oh, yeah.
And I just couldn't shake it. It was like, oh, God. I was like, so the plane's turning. I'm like, no, it's really straight.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a killer in the airplane world. People can't figure out up and down, and they forget about the artificial horizon that's right there in front of them. They don't believe their instruments.
So is the get there-itis, because when I did my flight test for my flight instructor certification,
yep.
The weather kind of came down a little bit, and basically that was a whole story during that flight, or some takeoffs that we did. Man, we did one takeoff, and we were in like a semi-micro burst or something, because the plane started shaking all over the place. It felt like dust was coming down. We were like 2 feet above the ground, and I'm just like flying that thing like it's a Bronco. I'm like, oh my God. And then after that settled down and we're about, 80 feet above the ground or something, that's when the flight instructor, FAA check ride person said, okay, my plane. I'm like, well, that's a little late. But afterwards, once we landed and she told me I passed and stuff, I had to fly back to Nashua. And I walked outside and God, new flight instructor, in the aviation world, it's a big deal to get to that level. And also to pass the first time, it's like a 80% fail rate at that time for the flight instructor check ride with the FAA. So I went outside and I was pre-flighting the airplane and I just was looking at the weather, looking at the sky going, oh, I know I can get home. And I'm like, I needed some time away from them to think about it. And then I went inside and God, I wanted to get home so bad. But I called weather and the weather was going down and figured that I shouldn't be flying in instruments when I'm like that sort of stressed.
Yeah.
And I called the flight school and they said, well, we're not going to give you permission to fly on instruments because I'm a student of theirs. I have to get their permission. Right. And the other thing they said, well, I'll also let you know your flight instructor quit. Like, wait a minute, what did I do? But I talked with Sandy, the flight examiner, the next day, and she goes, well, what you did yesterday was phenomenal because there's a chain of events that happens before an accident happens, and you cut that chain by deciding to not do that flight. But I mean, that analysis, I guess, can be used for a variety of things, and like archery doesn't have to be really an accident, but could be, I raise the bow and I come up and realize, oh, something's off, and then, put the bow back down and go, okay, refocus. Oh, that feels better.
Well, and that's it. I tell students all the time is that, and even experienced archers, that I've never heard anyone say, I wish I hadn't let down. But I've heard it a million times. Damn, I should have let down on that shot. And you're right. Accident causation it's just like dominoes. If you just pull one out, and the reason people fail when they know they're going to fail is because they continue to march towards this objective, even though they know there's something wrong, that everything's not right. And so the way you stop accidents and the way you stop bad shots and the way you stop from failing at stuff like that is you stop. You have to stop. The key word is to stop. I mean, it really is.
Because you have to say something because it's just human nature.
Yeah, it's like, I know that dog's going to bite me, but I'm going to walk in that yard anyway. Well, why don't I just stop at the gate, and holler and just, hey, anybody up there? I wouldn't have got bit because there might not be anybody up there anyway. Why should I go in the yard? I mean, but seriously, it's like that. People do things, and it's human nature. I mean, you're driving into a fog bank. Well, the way you don't have an accident is you slow down. But no, the people hit that fog bank doing 90 mile an hour and crash right in the back of an 18-wheeler.
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that.
And
I mean, I do slow down when I'm driving in a fog, but
so we did that a lot in the military. Was studied accident causation and why things happen. It's not. I mean, you think the Army, it's a dangerous place and people will get shot and blown up and all that stuff. If you're responsible for somebody getting shot and blown up, your career is over. I mean, frostbite. Something as simple as, I mean, you got to make sure that nobody's going to get frostbite. I mean, me and my unit, you get frostbite, man, I'm going to kill you because I've done everything I could to make sure that you didn't get it. But that's it. If you get somebody with a cold injury, your career is probably over. A heat injury, you get somebody who drops out with heat exhaustion or heat stroke, man, you're up. I mean, you better be in the heat of battle when that happens because if you're in a training situation or training environment, your career is shot. So we studied a lot about accident causation, and you're right. And archery is the same way. You have one way to stop bad things from happening, and that's to let down and don't shoot. Start over. Just start over. Simple as that. And I think the mental program when we're teaching our archers is that they need to learn how to stop mentally too. There's a point where you have to stop thinking about things, stop obsessing over something. And, the mental game it's not easy, but it's learnable. And I think that if we spend more time thinking about mental aspects of shooting, then we'll spend a whole lot less time complaining about how bad we're shooting because our shooting will get better.
Well, also teaching as instructor or coach, is you can get complacent and just feel like everything's safe.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when your mind starts wondering about other things, bring it right back. Consider it like lifeguarding. I mean, no one's going to drown because there's no water, hopefully, but there's I think tends to be a false sense of safety.
Yeah.
And something can happen, just like that.
Oh, yeah. And then you're right, it can. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a funny game, and you have to bring a lot of life lessons into archery as an archer and as a coach, especially because, people pay you and they expect miracles to happen. They do. I get people all the time. It's like, they hand that check over or deposit that money in your PayPal account. They want to know, well, why didn't I win the Joad Nationals? So I can give you 100 reasons, but probably the number one reason is right here. Just go and blame me. I've been fired from coaching. I've been hired back, from people that have fired me multiple times, and so I mean, but it's business. I look at it as business, and the better I do my job, the better my business is. And but people do. They expect that because you're getting coached that they're going to succeed right away. And I'll tell you, I think that's to a certain extent. I think that's true. I had somebody ask me just a few days ago. So I know some people whose kids have been shooting bare bow and they want to go to Olympic style. What should they do first? I said, well, first they should buy a sight and a set of stabilizers, and secondly, they should find a really good coach. I mean, those two things right there are probably going to help them more than anything else. You want to shoot Olympic style, you better get a good sight and a set of stabilizers, and find a damn good coach. Because if you don't, you're gonna waste more time than you ever thought possible. So I don't know.
Well, Dee, this has been absolutely wonderful. I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate it, Lucy. It's always good talking to you. And this was I kind of like this format. A little bit more relaxed, and sometimes the listeners may think we rambled a little bit, but I believe we got to the point.
I don't know. What did we talk about?
We talked more about the mental aspects of coaching archery and shooting archery, but some of that was kind of veiled beneath other side stories. But I really think that we've spent a lot of time discussing some really key mental things about our sport. And
I just want to add, because you said that you do a lot of coaching of coaches, and people watching this or listening may not realize that you're a coach of level 4 coaches,
right,
which is, you've been doing that for quite a few years too.
Yeah.
So that's not just the beginner coach.
No. I do a lot of. I mean, you run the level 3 class, but that's not really coaching coaches. That's training people to hopefully step off on their coaching career. But I've done quite a bit of mentoring, and some of it formal mentoring. I've worked with you. It's sort of semi-mentoring, and then worked with John Stover along his road to become a level 5 coach, and he finally made it. I'm really proud of myself in that respect.
Awesome! Congratulations to him.
John's a really great guy, and I've known him for a long time. I coached his daughter forever. Coached Holly to multiple national championships. And again, I mean, she had a coach, Lori Solinsky, who got her to a pretty high level. And then, when I got the junior dream team, I started working with Holly. And then later on, got her to the resident athlete staff and kind of picked up on her again as she was getting out of that and before she left the RA program. And then I worked with her as a mentor while she was the head coach at Lancaster Archery. And then I mentored her through her level 4, and now she's a JDT coach. And so, I take this very seriously. That, I've got some people that call me and ask me questions. Michael Lundeen, who's now the national director for the Scholastic 3D program, which is taken off like a blockbuster. I worked with Michael since he was a level 2, and he taught him his level 3, and was on the staff when he got his level 4. and we've been good friends, and I've been his mentor. So I coach coaches through mentoring, and I'd like to see a more formal mentor program in USA Archery, because I believe there's a lot of room for that. Every time you call me up, I get to tell you something good that I hope helps your career. And one of these days maybe I'll be thinking, yeah, I helped old Lucy get her level 5.
Yeah, we're just have a few boxes to check left on that.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised, those boxes aren't that insurmountable.
They're not. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. There's going to be a great tournament in Argentina in about 3 months. You should come along. No, I think this is really good, and I really like this format, and I had a good time. I always enjoyed discussing archery with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Coach D. And do you want to leave us with a pearl of wisdom?
Yeah, I think that, you kind of got me on the spur of the moment, but yeah, I will. And
that was the point.
I think that, I say a lot, and I actually have it on my Skype pages. It says, I'll bring it up so I don't misquote myself, but it says, know how good you are and believe you're good enough. And I think that too many people don't really know how good they are. And they really kind of shortchange themselves on what their ability really is, or they have too high of an opinion of themselves. But you got to know how good you really are, and then deep down inside, you have to have this unshakable knowledge that I am good enough. And it's more than just, well, I think I'm good enough. Because I am good enough. I'm good enough to do this. I'm good enough to be a level 5 coach. I'm good enough to coach an archer to a national championship. I'm good enough to be on an international team staff. And so once you start believing those things and you say it to yourself, then you start being those things. So, yeah, just know how good you are and believe you're good enough.
I've seen that quote. I love it. I've seen it on your Skype page. Well, Coach D, thank you so much. And again, this is Coach Lucy from New England School of Archery and Supplies, LLC, and theflyingarcher.com. Just chatted with awesomeness coach level 5 D Falks, and I will have this on my blog, and we'll have notes from this. This has just been awesome. Thank you so much for your time, D.
All right, thank you, Lucy. Take care, and hope to see you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
See ya.